It's winter, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, so now seems like a good time to look at 10 science fiction books that have a wintry setting. We're going to look at 5 books set on chilly versions of Earth and then 5 more set in icy locations far from home. Let's get going before I succumb to frostbite. In The Snow by Adam Roberts, it starts to snow and doesn't stop, ever. What is initially a jolly winter time is soon chaotic and ultimately deadly. Tira is a middle-aged Londoner. She's the protagonist, and she does her best to keep up with the snowfall, finding places to hole up that are not yet snowed under. Eventually, she has to seek shelter in the upper floors of a high-rise building, teaming up with a London Underground worker. But even that gets overwhelmed by the snow, and they end up deeply buried. Life is hard for them. There's only so much scavenging to be had with the deep snow, and disease and infection await the careless. For Tira, at least, rescue is at hand in the form of some snow miners looking for gold. The rest of the book is concerned with Tira and her interactions with the snow miners and their fellow survivors from something called the new United States of America. The snow is miles thick by this point. Billions are dead. Perhaps 150,000 remain alive on the whole planet, and they need organising and managing and governing, don't they? And this is where the lies begin. For Tira, there's a floating city, an arranged marriage, an icy prison, and a repentant terrorist. The Snow is less a disaster survival tale, although there is an element of that at the beginning of the book. It's much more a tale of those few left behind and how they make new lives in this strange new world. Why is it still snowing? It's gone far beyond a natural phenomenon, well beyond even the most fervent climate activists' worst predictions. What or who is the cause of all this snow, and what is its purpose? Sticking with the topic of the relentless onslaught of frozen water this time, it's in the form of glacial ice, which in Anna Kavan's Ice is seemingly due to one or more nuclear explosions at some point. It's a bleak and fragmented world. The narrator, who's unnamed, feverishly pursues a fragile, also nameless woman across this icy, desolate landscape, driven by conflicting emotions of desire, of control and cruelty. Initially, the narrator must contend with the woman's husband, who also controls her, and later with the warden, a sinister figure who seeks to dominate her as well. Quite frankly, the men don't come off too well in this tale, it seems. The narrator views women as an object to possess, deriving a disturbing amount of pleasure from her suffering. Now, his obsession reflects deeper themes of control and trauma and emotional detachment. Ice is really a critique of patriarchal domination, as the woman struggles to assert her agency in a world where she's controlled by men and objectified as a fragile, sacrificial figure. Ice frequently shifts between reality and hallucination, suggesting that the narrator's mental state might be unstable. His visions depict the woman as crushed, fragmented and consumed by ice. The narrator and the woman seem doomed to repeat cycles of flight and capture, creating an oppressive sense of entrapment and inevitability. The ice is there to create peril, obviously, but also mirrors the psychological state of the characters: emotional coldness, addiction, destruction, and the inevitability of death. Sounds cheerful, doesn't it? And rather chilly. In The World in Winter, John Christopher also imagines a new ice age. As the story opens, the protagonist, a London-based television documentary producer, is researching an Italian scientist's prediction of a solar downturn that may cause much harsher winters. The winter worsens far beyond the scientist's predictions, leading to food shortages, rationing, and the imposition of martial law in Britain. In a desperate move, the government cordons off central London, creating a protected zone for the elite, while abandoning the rest of the UK to chaos, starvation, and lawlessness. Despite his initial reluctance, the protagonist is persuaded to leave Britain while safe passage remains possible. In a marked reversal of fortune in Nigeria, the protagonist and other white refugees face poverty, menial jobs and slum conditions as African nations reject former colonial currencies and British sovereignty. On the face of it, The World of Winter is a climate disaster tale, but really it's a vehicle for exploring reverse colonisation, power dynamics, survival and the shifting relationships between the colonisers and the colonised. Where is the coldest place on the planet? Antarctica must be in with a shout, and our next book is set there some decades in the future. In Austral by the underappreciated Paul McAuley, attempts to get climate change under control have failed. Thanks in part to this and to past attempts to terraform Antarctica, the 6th continent is now marginally habitable in places and has been subject to a migration and effective colonisation. Rapacious industrialisation is contrasted with the now defunct eco-poets, the rogue terraformers of the piece, and their more environmentally harmonious efforts. Our protagonist is Austral Malaris Ferrado, a gene-edited husky. She's well adapted for the Antarctic climate. She now lives as an outcast due to her origins in the eco-poet movement, facing discrimination and limited opportunities. Austral has been a convict, a corrections officer in a labour camp, a consort to a criminal, and now, out of desperation, she's committed the kidnapping of the century, taking her wealthy teenage cousin hostage. Intending to make a quick buck to fund a new start in life, instead she ends up having to set off on a desperate journey across the ice. Austral and cousin Camilla flee across the hostile wilderness of Antarctica, doing their best to evade both the authorities and a criminal gang seeking control of Camilla. On the way, we get flashbacks to her family's tumultuous history, the legacy of the eco-poet movement, and the moral ambiguities of survival in an increasingly unforgiving world. To me, Austral sounds like an interesting main character. She's a husky and a social outcast as a result, but she's resourceful, strong, and burdened by her family's history and the discrimination that goes with it. She oscillates between self-interest and human kindness, and at its heart, Austral seems to be a cautionary tale of human folly in its many forms, of our failure to learn from history, from environmental disasters, but it's also about the struggle for identity and the cost of survival. In the last of our Earthbound tales, we're closer to home this time with Early Riser by the very witty Jasper Fforde, who creates an intricately detailed and very chilly version of Wales. In this world, we're still firmly in the grip of the Ice Age. So dangerously cold is it in this world that humanity hibernates for several months during the deadly winter. Although routine now for thousands of years, the hibernation process is still fraught with dangers like nightwalkers, who are zombie-like creatures, and a range of hibernation complications. Our protagonist is Charlie Worthing. He's a reluctant hero and a new recruit to the Winter Consoles, the team responsible for protecting the hibernating population and ensuring their survival through the winter. An outbreak of viral dreams begins to spread, initially dismissed as harmless, but it soon becomes clear that these dreams can be deadly and bizarrely prophetic. Charlie becomes trapped in the mysterious Sector 12, tangling with nightwalkers, villainous aristocrats, and other hazards of the deep winter. Amidst the chilly chaos, Charlie uncovers secrets about the viral dreams, about the villainous hypertext machinations, and the true cost of humanity's reliance on hibernation technology. To add to all that, there are Winter Volk, those who choose not to hibernate, risking all in defiance of social norms. And there are mysterious, mythical creatures, eccentric, aristocratic villains, all adding layers of menace, mystery, and comic absurdity to the story. Talking of comic absurdity, every page is shot through with Jasper Fforde's trademark clever, witty prose. He sort of machine guns you in the face with his witty asides, his arch references to pop culture, poking fun at the characters in the book along the way. And it's cold, really fucking cold. Before we head to more far-flung frozen frontiers, can you think of any other science fiction tales set in wintry places? Do any of these books sound like a good midwinter read to you? Do let me know in the comments. I'm always really happy to hear from you all. Next, we head to Helliconia, specifically Helliconia Spring, the first novel in the trilogy by Brian Aldiss. Helliconia orbits the star Bellatrix, but the whole solar system orbits another star, which governs the long cycle of great seasons on Helliconia. Despite the name, Helliconia Spring begins 100 years before the end of the Great Winter. Central to the Helliconia story is the conflicting and yet symbiotic relationship between the humans and the Fagor, an intelligent hunter-gatherer evolved to survive the harsh Helliconia winter. Helliconia Spring explores the transformation of a society and its environment as the planet Helliconia transitions from its century-long Great Winter into the beginning of the Great Spring. The story spans decades, intertwining personal struggles with the broader cycles of the climate and civilization. We begin with Yuli, a youth who survives the harsh winter wilderness after his father's enslaved by the Fagors. Yuli finds refuge in Panaval, an oppressive underground city ruled by a despotic priesthood. Disillusioned with its corruption, Yuli escapes and establishes a small tribal society in the frozen wilderness, renaming it Oldorando. His leadership and resilience set the foundation for a lineage that will reshape the future of the region. Generations later, as the climate begins to warm, Oldorando's society grows and evolves, encountering new challenges and new opportunities. There is commerce, civilization, and a burgeoning campaign for women's rights. The thawing land brings not only plant and animal life, but also dangers, including a resurgent Fagor threat and the devastating spread of bone fever, a disease linked to climate adaptation. The whole Helliconia trilogy progresses through the cycle of grand seasons, ending with Helliconia Winter, which covers the approaching bitterly cold winter season and the reascendancy of the Fagor. I really love the sweep of these books, coupled with the trademark prose, of course, of Brian Aldiss. In Plutoshine by Lucy Kissick, we're in the future. We've terraformed parts of the solar system, and now humanity's finest engineers aim to transform Pluto into a habitable planet, using big solar mirrors and bombarding it with asteroids, tackling the extreme cold and darkness as they do. For Pluto is 40 times further than the sun than we are, which makes it a touch chilly out, 40 or 50 degrees above, absolute zero in fact. So who wouldn't want to warm it up a bit, brighten the place up? Well, not everyone's in favour, and the terraforming project faces mysterious sabotage, adding tension and raising questions about the motives and the safety of the colony. This mystery and its ultimate resolution is the rational point of Plutoshine, the sciencey bit that you might expect from an author who's also a working nuclear chemist. For me, though, the heart of this novel is actually the relationship, the friendship between Lucian, a terraformer, and 11-year-old Nu. Born on Pluto, Nu is now an elective mute due to an unspecified traumatic incident tied to a tragedy that's also left her father in a coma. Lucian becomes a mentor and sort of surrogate brother to Nu, teaching her sign language and helping her to regain her lost confidence. As Nu tentatively begins to communicate, she reveals secrets about Pluto that could disrupt the terraforming project and reshape humanity's understanding of the entire solar system. Plutoshine explores the moral implications of planetary colonization, asking whether humanity should focus on Earth rather than risk harming potentially alien ecosystems. I really love the relationship between Lucian and Nu. My paternal heartstrings were very much tugged by Nu and that relationship, and I might have had something in my eye once or twice during the book. So Plutoshine, I think, is a nice blend of the intimate and the thrilling, the large scale. And yes, it's really, really cold. Alan Foster's 1974 adventure Icerigger is the first book in a trilogy. It's also the book that impressed George Lucas so much that he asked Foster to write the novelisation of the first Star Wars movie and to write a potential sequel, Splinter in the Mind's Eye. Icerigger begins with an attempted kidnapping of a millionaire and his daughter, thwarted by boisterous passenger Skewer September, but resulting in a crash landing on the icy planet Trang Ki. Ethan Froome Fortune, a lowly salesman, is thrust into the role of reluctant leader, while the grizzled Skewer September provides the muscle and some bravado. The rest of the passengers are a mixed bunch. There's a young school teacher, a dementia-stricken tycoon, a plus-size potential love interest, an academic, and a lone surviving kidnapper who must be watched at all times. Trang Ki is a harsh, frozen planet where survival depends on navigating the icy terrain, battling the extreme cold, and evading numerous dangerous native beasties. The Tran are a humanoid cat hybrid with skates for claws. Yes, really. And they live in feudal societies and play a key role in aiding the stranded humans in return for the humans' help defending their community against the nomadic horde. There is only one Humanx settlement on the planet, and it's thousands of miles away, a trek of over a year in truly perilous conditions. Icerigger is light and engaging. It's a fast-paced, swashbuckling action-adventure on ice in the style of Harry Harrison. It's witty and exciting, and really cold. Hugo and Nebula winning book The Left Hand of Darkness is set in Ursula Le Guin's Hainish universe. The action takes place on Gethen, known to the locals as Winter, and it may not surprise you to know that on Winter it is wicked cold, frigid. Gethenians are ambisexual, adopting male or female sexual attributes only during a monthly mating phase called Kemmer. This lack of fixed gender roles has profound effects on the way that their society works, eliminating many of the traditional gender dynamics and war. Genly A is a male human from Terra, and he's been sent as an envoy to convince the nations of Winter or Gethen to join the Ecumen, a coalition of humanoid worlds. He is a fish out of water, or perhaps that should be a fish on ice. He struggles to understand Gethenian society and its subtle social rules. Estraven is a politically exiled Gethenian, and she is press-ganged into becoming his reluctant ally and guide. The two primary nations on Gethen are depicted as being on the brink of conflict, and both nations manipulate Genly for their political aims. Gethen's harsh, icy climate shapes its inhabitants' resilience. The perpetual winter emphasises survival as a unifying force in Gethenian culture. Whilst The Left Hand of Darkness is really about gender, respect and communication and the difficulties of cross-cultural interactions, the cold of Gethen is the constant year-round backdrop to the tale, and our protagonist gets to experience it up close and personal. At one point in the novel, Genly and Estraven must undertake a gruelling 80-day trek across the ice to return to civilization. They face crevasses, blizzards and frostbite, a shared peril that cements their relationship. Sneaking into this list mainly by virtue of its name, our next book is The Snow Queen by Joan D. Vinge. The Galactic Empire collapsed millennia ago, leaving a fragmented remnant called the Hegemony, a coalition of just 7 planets. Whilst advanced, the Hegemony's technology is still well below the Empire's peak level. Tiamat is an oceanic planet and is only accessible to the Hegemony through a wormhole, the so-called Black Gate, which opens and closes in 150 years cycles due to the complex orbital interaction involving something called the Summer Star. Tiamat's matriarchal society is split into 2 clans, the Summers, who favour folk traditions and simplicity, and the Winters, who embrace technology and off-world trade. Political control alternates between them every 150 years as the Black Gate opens and closes. When it gets the chance, the Hegemony exploits Tiamat for Mers, sea creatures whose blood contains a smart matter virus granting virtual immortality. During the period of winter rule, Mers are hunted extensively and off-worlders trade technology for the water of life. Arianrod, the Snow Queen, secretly implants clones of herself into summer women in an attempt to maintain power after her ceremonial execution at the end of winter. One clone, our protagonist, Moon Dawntreader, survives to adulthood. The story follows Moon as she travels to the capital and uncovers the true scope of the Hegemony's exploitation of Tiamat. Moon has a vital part to play in preparing Tiamat for a future of independence and resistance, and she intends to end its exploitation and establish an equality with the Hegemony when the wormhole reopens after 150 years. The Snow Queen explores themes of resistance as Moon and others challenge the imposed stagnation to reclaim autonomy and progress for their planet. And the alternating reigns of summer and winter symbolise the tension between tradition and progress, between spirituality and science, and destruction and renewal. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and as usual, thanks ever so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye for now.